Welcome to our new series, The 200 Movie Challenge. Our goal this year is to watch 200 movies that we haven't seen yet. If you want to listen to the full podcast where this clip is from, the link will be in the description. Now enjoy today's movie. But Soda, when I presented you Slaughterhouse,
oh gosh,
you had to present me with another movie. It was a movie you actually were going to watch, but you figured, well, if I got to go through this pain, I'm going to give Chad a movie.
Yeah.
And
on my head.
You were going to watch Shark Side of the Moon, a Tubi original.
Yeah, of course.
So first of all, why? Before I even get to this review, because this could be an interesting one, a little bit longer. But first of all, why? Why did you want? What interested you? What caught your eye when you saw Shark Side of the Moon?
I mean, like, I saw two sharks on the cover, two shark men kind of thing, and it said Shark Side of the Moon, and I laughed, and I said, "That's enough to get me interested in this." I said, "Wow, okay." And I read the synopsis, and of course I laughed again, which we famously know has gotten me in trouble with Prisoners of the Ghostland. This is the new Prisoners of the Ghostland rule. Like, I cannot allow myself to be snookered by a well-placed description that makes me laugh, because 9 times out of 10, it's usually a trap. So yeah, I saw sharks. I saw Shark Side of the Moon, and I said, I might watch this.
So let me quickly recap this. What you read, the synopsis of the film, before I get into my review, because some of it's real quick. I just kind of pulled it up here on Wikipedia, so it might not have been the same one. Decades ago, the USSR developed unkillable sharks and launched them to the moon. Today, a team of American astronauts will endure the fight of their lives.
I have so many questions.
Oh, no. So let's get there. First of all, this movie came out in 2022. I always like to, say the year it came out. This movie was also from the producers of Sharknado. I say that because, weirdly enough, this movie looks like a movie. I mean, this does not look like Sharks of the Corn. This is not this looks like a TV movie. For the most part, but you know what I mean. We watched like Sharks of the Corn, Pro Wrestlers vs. Zombies Law. Those did not look. This looks like a sci-fi TV movie. So, like I said, maybe not something we probably would have seen in theaters, but you're like, okay, there is some quality. But yes, it is for the producers of Sharknado, so some money went into this. So yeah, so this movie starts off in the 80s, and you see two. I have to say this one time, USSR scientists, but after I'm going to say Russian. USSR, and one USSR, is feeding the sharks. Now, we at this point of the film, we do not. When I went into this, I just want you to know, I looked at nothing. I did not see what the thumbnail to this movie looked like. I only knew from your synopsis. I went in as much blind as I can. I say that because obviously the synopsis kind of gave us a little bit, and you kind of mentioned a couple things about hybrids and legs, but we'll get to that. So mind you, as I'm talking about this, I knew nothing. So yes, these two Russian scientists, one is feeding the sharks. There's like some electric fence, and nothing. Okay. And the second Russian scientist sneaks up behind him. Now, obviously, they're doing, and goes like, boo, like he's playing a prank. And the guy screams and somehow throws something, and accidentally one of the electric fence things moves to the side. And then we get a little bit of, a little bit of backstory. They're talking like, oh yeah, these sharks, they can solve basic problems. They can understand the phonetic alphabet. They can also understand the Russian language. And then they're like, yeah, they can also communicate through the computer. And then all of a sudden something's coming across the computer in Russian, so I cannot obviously decipher it. They did not put the subtitles up for that. They put the subtitles up for the Russian scientists speaking, and then looking like, what's going on? So now I am 2 minutes and 30 seconds in. The quickest backstory. They told us what was going on, what these sharks know. And again, we're in the 80s. And all of a sudden, I see a shark start slithering, climbing out of the pool. And then I notice they have legs. And I'm like, oh shit. And I'm like, wait, these sharks are walking. Then I notice they have arms. And I'm like, these sharks have motherfucking muscles. And now they're multiple sharks are coming out of this thing. I don't even know how many. One shark punches a guy, snaps in half. Like the upper torso of his body goes one direction, his bottom torso stays there. I'm like, damn, sharks can punch. So obviously
by the way, and I'll let you continue.
Yep.
I haven't heard anything yet that would make me not want to.
Oh no, so don't worry. Oh, don't worry, Soto. Well,
so far, you're selling it to me. Just FYI.
Oh, this might anyhow. So again, they're escaping. The sharks are killing people, and these two scientists, for some reason, now we know they end up in the moon. That's the name of this title. Now, Soto, me and you, for some reason, we're part of this, and we're trying to escape. Well, the first thing we think about is to fly away in a motherfucking shuttle, a space shuttle. Like, they don't, it's not a plan to take the sharks there. They are just trying to escape the sharks. So what happens is, yes, all the sharks, realizing these are probably the last two scientists, are getting on the shuttle. They're like, all right, we got 1 minute till takeoff, but on the screen it said like 10 seconds. I'm like, they fucking can't tell time. As the sharks are boarding, they realize something's wrong. So one scientist is like, all right, I'll stall them, just give you time. And the shuttle obviously takes off, and then we are at title screen. This is just the opening, Toto. This is just the motherfucking opening to all this. So we cut the present day.
If I was a studio guy, I would give you all my money to make this movie. Like, you're pitching this shit well.
I will say there is some enjoyment to this, but there's going to be questions coming. Mind you, the setup is probably the best part, and the setup is there. But anyhow, so we're in present day, and it starts off. Now you see Americans in the shuttle, so we know it's whatever today's date, 2022, and I realized, and I'm like, wait, don't astronauts aren't they supposed to wear suits when they launch? Now I get it, Star Trek doesn't show it, but they set those rules. I'm like, whatever. All right, obviously I know the rules. Nothing's realistic. And then all of a sudden one woman's like, oh man, my stomach hurts. I shouldn't have eaten those tacos. So that was a line. And then she has to go take a shit. And they're like, she's like, I don't know if I can do this trip. And they're like, if we don't go through with this trip now, we're going to have to wait another 6 months. A woman taking a shit could derail this in 6 months. So they like, all right, she has to get kicked off. We're going to wait for the alternate. And somehow time has passed. I'm like, in the time that they're waiting for this alternate guy, she could have gone to the bathroom and got back on. But no, we get a new guy. His name's Mike. And then he's kind of like the jokester. He's, they get in there, take it off. He's like, oh, wait, I think I left my stove on. That, again, that is a line. That is a word for word line. Now, this would have made sense if Mike was a major character. This would have made sense if this was anything important. That was it. I think this is done just to make a taco shit joke. They did not need that. This is not like Mike's like, oh, I used to date, just no one likes him because he's a jokester, but that's it. It's not like, oh, he's the ex-boyfriend of the captain, this and that, or he's just now just a regular member of the team. Nothing more important. The captain's probably the most important person, on this crew, main character. And I'm just like, what the fuck was even that all about? So anyhow, Americans are going to space. They're getting close to the moon, and all of a sudden they hit an electromagnetic field, and the shuttle goes off course. Somehow they hit the satellite. They crash on they said so many Far Side of the Moon jokes. I don't know why.
Of course.
But anyhow, they crashed. They were like, okay, we can't. The shuttle's not working. We killed the satellite. They don't even know where we are. We are off course. And then they're figuring things out. They're like, well, we got 6 months worth of supplies. The whole thing about going to the moon was they're going to start up and figure out basically how people can live on the moon. Thousands of people. So they were going to start basically setting up a society. That was just the quick story to us. Again, after that, doesn't matter. But yes, they got 6 months of supplies. So the first group goes out to the moon. They're going to try and find the rover. They're going to get this, they're going to see what they can see and hopefully figure out a way to contact Earth. Because again, there's no contact. There's nothing. No one knows where they're at. So there's a group of 3 or 4 and they're just going on the moon. And then all of a sudden they see something kind of coming underneath the moon. Now think Tremors. That's the best way to explain. When the movie Tremors with Kevin Bacon, the big worm, and you see this, so picture that. Excuse me. Hold on. I got to read this word for word again. So it'll probably one of the last lines I'll repeat, but I have to repeat this line out of all the fucking lines. Hey, what's that under the moon? Is that a moon snake? Is that the rover? Think something pops up. Sharks! And then obviously they're on the moon, so they're trying to run away. But Soto, there's no gravity. This is the slowest moon chase, and it's hilariously bad. Like, they're kind of hopping, and the sharks are doing the same thing with their legs, and they're just running. And I'm actually laughing at this. I'm like, it's kind of brilliant, but it's so dumb that I'm laughing at it. I'm like, okay. And then all of a sudden, one of the sharks just explodes. And you're like, what the fuck? Turns out that Russian that came on that space shuttle in the 80s, we're present day, is still alive and has been living on the moon for 40 years. If you really do the math, it's been 40 years. And he thinks this is the rescue party. Oh, no, it's Americans. And USSR does not like Americans.
No, right.
So they're obviously bickering. And now there's also a young woman with him. And she calls him Dad. And I'm like, wait, he was the only one. And she has this weird shark fin bump on her back. We'll get to more on that later, Soto. We're not going to get to that right now, but we're going to get to that later. So I'm just like, what the fuck? What the fuck's going on? So they're arguing because the Americans are like, well, let's go back to our shuttle, and we can figure things out, try and, see if we can get off. Russia's like, no, let's go back to our lair. The sharks will follow us. You can't talk in the walkie-talkies. They'll know where you're going. And in the midst of the battle, another shark appears, kidnaps an American, goes into some crater. So they end up going back to the Russians' lair. So I want to focus more on the American that got kidnapped. If I'm going to talk about anything, it's this. So he's there. Now the sharks are talking. Most of them talk Russian. There's little subtitles. He's like, I don't speak Russian. And it's an ongoing joke. He's like, hey. Then the leader comes. It's this woman, shark, for hybrid. I don't even know what to call it. We're in a sports bar. The whole thing just flipped me out. The whole time the sharks are talking, it's off screen. And I'm thinking, okay, well, special effects on shark talking, there's no way they can make that look good. But she's talking to him.
Still in the budget, right?
Yeah, and then she's telling him the plan, like, hey, yeah, we wanted to crash your shuttle because we did that so we can steal your shuttle so the remaining sharks in our eggs can go to Earth and take over Earth. And then all of a sudden they show her, and then they're showing her talk. I'm like, okay, well, there is room in the budget, but it was bad. Like I said, all right, I was fine with the sharks having legs and arms and kind of walking. Yeah. Like I said, it wasn't cheese, but I'm like talking. I'm like, all right, this is kind of bad special effects. But again, I'm in it for the ride. But he won't give up where the shuttle is. So she goes up to him and bites off his leg, where then he gives up the shuttle. So real quick, you find out in the course of all this, the reason why that girl has a shark fin is because she's also a hybrid. She was part of the shark clan, but she didn't come out like the rest of them. She came out more, while all the sharks are more shark-like with legs and arms, she's human, and she just has like some gills in the fin. So because she was like, the one who couldn't do anything, they kind of just left her out there to die. He took her in, he took care of her, hence why she calls him Dad. So I was glad. I was worried, Soto. I was honest to God worried that somehow he slept with the shark or something happened, because she kept calling him Dad, like, oh, please don't. So I'm like, okay. She was just someone that the shark clan didn't want. Well, you know how these movies go, Soto. We've seen bad movies and we're like, what the fuck? But this whole movie really turns out, can the Russians and the Americans work together to prevent the sharks from going back to Earth, and can they find a way home? I will admit, I said a lot. This movie, like I said, it is bad. I did laugh at some parts, but it did look like a movie, and I can actually appreciate that. It did have its own set of rules. There is a beginning, middle, end. As you just said, with when this ended, I wasn't actually pissed. I was like, oh, okay, they did, they kind of set up, again, possible sequel. I'm not going to look this shit up. Obviously, they had to. But yeah, so watching this, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, the special effects aren't that great, but I was in it for the ride. But yeah, there's a lot of dialogue that took me out of it. Now, I don't know how your acting was in Slaughterhouse.
Crazy.
But I will say, I mean, come on, we had a taco shit joke. We had the turn, so there was a lot, like I said, but for the most part, Soto, this was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It was bad, but like I said, I've seen worse. This is definitely not the worst movie I've seen this year. But yeah, you know what? I think a part of me felt like it could have been better. I mean, obviously, what more, I don't know, maybe the special effects, maybe a more coherent story, maybe not cheesy lines. And I'm okay with cheesy lines. Just have it make sense.
Me too.
But this is just like cringe cheesy. And, I don't do well with cringe. I know some people like cringe. I'm not a big fan of cringe. But like I said, I was so surprised For what this was and the title and what we read and the fact that it was a to be original, this surprised me a little
I didn't
bit.
know.
Not
You've
a
seen
lot.
You've seen two this year.
You see to be original, you're worried. That's like bang bang. You're like, oh shit.
Fucking, what was the other one? The Get Off My Lawn? That was a Tubi original.
Oh, that was a Tubi original. And that was, I will say, Soto, this movie was above Get Off My Lawn. This movie,
nice.
Yeah, it's not on the bottom, but it is towards the bottom because, like I said, I mean, as hilarious as the sharks were, you know, it was bad special effects, but it was just, you just gotta go along with the ride. So I debated where to really put this. Once I kind of started looking, I was kind of, because originally, and I'm going to go through a quick train of thought. Originally, I'm like, this is above Pro Wrestlers versus Zombies. And then I'm looking at the movies above it. I'm like, well, hold on. I enjoyed this better than like I enjoyed Lift. I enjoyed this than Kind of Pregnant. But it didn't climb that high, Soto. So Soto, this movie is number 58. This is literally right underneath Aladdin. So that should still tell you something about this movie. Should you see this? Yeah. But kind of like, I think what you said with Slaughterhouse, I think the, well, I forgot how you said it, but just, you know, the gag or what was going on with the movie, you know, just the premise, it just lost steam. And you know, you get to a point, you're just like, okay, the kills weren't, or, you know, it wasn't really meant to be like scary. I would consider this more sci-fi, because yeah, they didn't really show overly graphic kills. I mean, yes, she bit off his leg, but that was just more her covering it, and then all of a sudden he's missing a fucking leg. And like I said, I mean, there's just parts of the story I'm just like, why did this guy Michael have to be the alternate? No one liked him because he was a jokester. I'm like, he just could have, but he could have been there from the beginning. He could have just still been the jokester. You didn't need to, you know, just like get, you know, the relationships between this whole crew. Yeah, so there are a lot of wasted characters, a lot of, I mean, not like anyone famous or anything I even recognize in this. So, but yeah, that's kind of where I stand. Like I said, I would definitely say it's there. I don't foresee it ever going higher. I don't think it's going lower. I'm looking at a lot of the movies underneath it, and I'm like, I did enjoy this better. Because I think I went in knowing this was going to be cheesy, like bad. And I think the fact, I honestly worried so I'm like, God, this is going to be like, what, 66, 67? Like, I was expecting that when I started. And then, yeah, I'm seeing the beginning, and I'm like, okay. And like I said, right when the sharks started coming up and I know his legs and arms, I'm like, okay, now I know what kind of movie I'm in. I'm in it. I understand it. I abide by your rules. But
I mean, I'm surprised it has a 68% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think
Slaughterhouse
is 61.
I think that's the popcorn meter. I don't think that's I could be wrong. Is that the official score?
Yeah, let me click on it. Yeah, let me find out right now. So you're right. It's the popcorn meter is 68%.
Yeah, because there is no real score. Because I looked this up too. Yeah, so that should tell you something where no one has reviewed this, because I think Sharks of the Corn was one of the same ones where no one didn't have official review. But again, I felt like this, you know, to me, this is a movie, like I said, would have been late night sci-fi. Kind of, again, you can tell the overall quality was there, like Sharknado, and I mean, just kind of like, it did not feel like a college movie, a high school movie. It's like, okay, they put in a little production value, and I do say a little. Like I said, the moon scenes were pretty hilarious. I'm not saying it's perfect, but like I said, we've seen so much worse, so much fake ass shit.